Hello there. There are moments when the body slows down. But sleep hasn't arrived yet. You might be lying still. Eyes closed. Breath settling into its own rhythm. You are awake. But no longer fully engaged with the world. This is a familiar place. Even if we don't often talk about it. That quiet stretch between activity and sleep. Between doing and letting go. And something important begins here. When you rest without sleeping, your brain doesn't simply wait. It doesn't idle. And it doesn't switch off. Instead, it gently changes what it's doing. The effort of focus loosens. The need to respond fades. The mind is no longer pulled forward by tasks or demands. And yet, inside, activity continues. Just in a softer form. This state can feel strange. Thoughts may drift in and out. Memories appear without invitation. Time feels less defined. You might notice that your mind feels both busy and relaxed at once. As if it's rearranging itself quietly in the background. Nothing here needs fixing. Nothing here needs to be managed. This in-between state is not a failure to sleep. And it's not wasted time. It is its own condition. With its own purpose. A place where the brain begins to turn inward. Not to solve problems. But to change how it holds them. Many people worry during these moments. Thinking they should already be asleep. Or that the wandering mind means rest isn't happening. But rest does not require unconsciousness. In fact, some of the brain's most subtle work begins. Before sleep ever arrives. As the body grows still. And the outside world becomes less demanding. The brain enters a quieter mode of attention. A mode designed not for action. But for reflection. Integration. And gentle repair. You may not feel this work happening. There are no signals to watch for. No markers to track. It unfolds naturally. The same way breathing does when you stop paying attention to it. And as this state deepens, the brain begins to shift its priorities. Moving away from the external world. And toward its inner landscape. That quiet shift. That subtle turning inward. Is where the story truly begins. And from here. The brain changes what it listens to. When you're ready, say the word, and we'll continue smoothly. As the body remains still. And the pull of the outside world continues to soften. The brain begins to listen differently. It turns down the systems built for reaction. For quick decisions. For constant alertness. And in their place. A quieter network becomes more active. This network doesn't chase goals. It doesn't scan for danger. It doesn't measure time in deadlines or minutes. Instead, it gently connects pieces of your inner world. Memories. Emotions. Patterns you've noticed without realizing you noticed them. This is sometimes called the brain's resting network. Though resting can be misleading. Nothing here is idle. The brain is softly organizing experience. Weaving together what happened today. With what has happened before. This is why thoughts during rest often feel loose. Unstructured. And strangely meaningful. One memory may drift into another. An image may appear without context. A feeling may surface without explanation. The brain isn't trying to entertain you. It's doing something quieter. It's integrating. During waking hours. Experience arrives faster than it can be fully processed. Rest gives the brain space to revisit those experiences. Not sharply. Not analytically. But gently. Connections are strengthened. Emotional weight is adjusted. What matters is kept close. What doesn't begins to fade. You may notice time feels different here. Minutes stretch. Thoughts loop. Awareness feels wide rather than focused. That's because the brain has shifted away from the systems that track time precisely. Instead, it moves into a mode that values continuity, flow, and internal coherence. This state is deeply familiar to the brain. It's one of the oldest modes of awareness we have, shared with moments of daydreaming, gentle reflection, and early stages of sleep. And while it may feel like nothing special is happening, this quiet activity helps prepare the brain for deeper rest later. It lowers mental friction. It smooths emotional edges. It reduces the need to stay alert. You don't have to follow these thoughts. You don't have to hold on to them. They're passing through on their own, like slow clouds across a wide sky. And as they pass, the brain continues its quiet work, shifting from awareness of the world to awareness of itself. From here, the body and mind begin to synchronize even more closely. And that's when rest starts to move beyond thought and into sensation. As the brain's quiet networks continue their gentle activity, the body begins to send its own signals of ease. Muscles release small, unnoticed tensions. Breathing grows less intentional, more natural, as if it no longer needs supervision. These physical changes may feel subtle, but the brain notices them immediately. Every slow breath, every softened muscle, tells the brain the same quiet message. There is no need to prepare. In response, the brain shifts again. It begins to reduce the background noise created by constant sensory input. Sounds feel farther away. Light feels less demanding. The boundary between the body and the environment softens slightly. This is where rest without sleep becomes especially powerful. Even though consciousness remains, the brain starts borrowing mechanisms normally reserved for sleep. Neural activity becomes more synchronized. Brain waves slow just a little, moving away from the fast rhythms of alert thinking and toward calmer patterns. This slowing doesn't mean dullness. It means efficiency. The brain is conserving energy, redirecting resources toward maintenance rather than performance. During this phase, chemical signals begin to shift as well. Stress-related activity gently declines. Neurotransmitters associated with calm and stability become more influential. Nothing dramatic happens all at once. It's more like a tide turning. Gradually. Almost imperceptibly. You might notice your thoughts becoming simpler. Less layered. Less demanding. The urge to analyze weakens. The need to plan loosens its grip. Instead, awareness settles into the body. The weight of your hands. The rhythm of breathing. The quiet presence of being here. This embodied awareness creates a feedback loop. The calmer the body feels, the more the brain relaxes. And the more the brain relaxes, the easier it becomes for the body to let go. This loop is one of the brain's most reliable pathways into deeper rest. It doesn't require effort. It doesn't respond to force. It responds to permission. And as this permission continues, rest begins to feel less like an action, and more like a natural state you're gently returning to. From here, the brain becomes increasingly receptive to stillness. Not empty stillness, but a quiet fullness, where very little needs to happen at all. As rest deepens, something practical and important begins to unfold. The brain turns its attention inward, toward maintenance. When we are fully alert, the brain prioritizes speed and responsiveness. But during periods of calm wakeful rest, it shifts priorities. Now, efficiency matters more than urgency. Neural pathways that were heavily used earlier begin to cool. Activity redistributes, spreading more evenly across networks. This allows the brain to start clearing subtle byproducts of mental activity. Not in the dramatic way sleep does, but gently, consistently. You can imagine it as a slow tidying. No rushing. No scrubbing. Just space being made. Memory systems take advantage of this quiet. Experiences from the day. Fragments of conversations. Bits of emotion. Are lightly reviewed. Some connections are strengthened. Others are allowed to fade. This selective process happens best when attention is not demanding outcomes. That's why rest without sleep can feel oddly refreshing, even without unconsciousness. The brain is organizing itself while you remain aware. At the same time, the nervous system shifts toward balance. Signals associated with vigilance decrease. Those associated with restoration increase. Heart rate becomes steadier. Blood flow redistributes to support internal regulation. You may not feel these changes directly, but they create a sense of quiet stability. This is also when the brain becomes less reactive. Small thoughts arise, then dissolve. Sensations appear, then pass without commentary. Nothing needs to be solved. This non-reactive state is one of the brain's most effective conditions for recovery. It allows systems to reset without interruption. As this continues, the distinction between thinking and resting becomes less sharp. Thoughts feel lighter. Presence feels heavier. And in this balance, the brain finds exactly the conditions it prefers for quiet renewal. Not through effort, but through absence of demand. A calm that doesn't need to announce itself, yet quietly does its work. As this quiet renewal continues, another subtle change becomes noticeable. Alertness doesn't disappear. It transforms. Instead of being sharp and outward focused, it becomes wide and soft. The brain remains awake, but no longer scans constantly for what comes next. This is a state sometimes described as relaxed alertness. Attention is present, yet unforced. Thoughts may still appear, but they arrive without urgency. They do not demand response. In this condition, the brain's default mode network becomes more active. This network is involved in reflection, meaning-making, and the gentle weaving together of experiences. It helps the mind understand itself without trying. You might notice moments where ideas connect quietly, or memories surface without emotion attached. This is not analysis. It's integration. The brain is allowing information to settle into a coherent whole. At the same time, sensory input becomes less dominant. Sounds feel farther away. Body sensations soften into the background. This reduction in sensory dominance frees mental space. It's one reason this state often feels expansive. Even when nothing is happening. Creativity sometimes appears here. Not as inspiration, but as ease. The brain is less constrained by immediate goals. So associations form naturally. This is why rest without sleep can feel mentally nourishing. You remain conscious. Yet the mind is no longer working against itself. There is no pressure to be productive. No need to perform. Just awareness. Held lightly. As this continues, the boundary between rest and sleep begins to blur. Not because sleep is arriving, but because the brain is practicing the same slowing rhythms. This state acts as a bridge. A place where the mind can recover, while still remaining present. And in this space, the brain learns that safety and clarity do not require constant effort. Sometimes, being awake and doing nothing is exactly what restores balance. As this state of relaxed alertness continues, something deeper begins to adjust. The nervous system starts to relearn balance. Most days, it is trained toward readiness. Toward reacting, predicting, responding. Even when nothing urgent is happening, the body often behaves as if it must stay prepared. But during rest without sleep, the nervous system is given a different lesson. It experiences safety without unconsciousness. Breathing slows on its own. Heart rhythms become steadier. Muscle tension releases in small, unnoticed waves. This is not forced relaxation. It's permission. The parasympathetic branch of the nervous system gently takes the lead. This system governs recovery, repair, and restoration. When it activates, the body shifts away from vigilance and toward maintenance. Hormonal signals soften. Stress chemistry gradually lowers. Inflammatory processes begin to quiet. None of this requires effort or intention. It happens because the brain is no longer sending constant signals of urgency. Over time, this state teaches the nervous system that calm awareness is safe. That nothing needs to be defended. In this moment, this learning matters. A nervous system that regularly experiences rest without collapse becomes more resilient. It responds to stress more efficiently and returns to baseline more easily. This is why even brief periods of quiet rest can have lasting effects. The body remembers what ease feels like. And when stress returns, as it always does, the system has a reference point. It knows how to come back. This kind of rest does not replace sleep, but it prepares the mind and body for it. It lowers the threshold between wakefulness and deeper restoration. And sometimes, that gentle preparation is enough. The nervous system does not need commands. It needs experiences. And in these moments of quiet, it is quietly learning how to rest again. As this calm awareness lingers, something subtle begins to shift. The mind is still awake, but it is no longer holding itself upright. Thoughts arrive more slowly. They feel softer at the edges. Less insistent. This is the space. Between doing and dreaming. Between effort and surrender. In this state, the brain begins to drift toward patterns that resemble the early stages of sleep. Not fully asleep, but no longer firmly anchored to the day. Brain waves gently slow. Attention widens. Time feels less structured. This is not losing consciousness. It is loosening grip. The brain reduces its need to track every moment precisely. Minutes stretch. Sensations blur slightly. Awareness becomes more spacious. This transition matters because it lowers resistance. Instead of pushing towards sleep, the system begins to slide naturally. Rest becomes a bridge, not a destination. For people who struggle with sleep, this space is especially important. It removes pressure. There is no demand to fall asleep. No clock to obey. Just a gradual easing into quieter rhythms. Even if sleep does not follow, the body benefits. And often, without effort or intention, sleep eventually arrives. On its own terms. The brain prefers invitations over commands. And this state of gentle rest is one of its most familiar invitations. Nothing needs to happen next. There is nowhere to go. The bridge is already beneath you. And it holds your weight. Without asking anything in return. As this gentle resting continues, the body begins to follow the mind. Breathing grows quieter. Not slower by force, but smoother on its own. Muscles release small tensions. They have been carrying unnoticed. The jaw softens. The shoulders lower slightly. Even the eyes feel heavier. Behind closed lids. Inside the brain. Communication changes tone. Signals that once carried urgency become softer, more rounded. The nervous system shifts away from alertness and toward balance. This is the state where restoration quietly deepens. Blood flow redistributes. Energy moves away from readiness and toward repair. Cells take advantage of the pause. They tidy. They reset. They prepare for what comes next. Without rushing. There is no dramatic moment. When rest turns into healing, it happens gradually. Almost invisibly. Like dusk becoming night. Awareness may drift in and out. Thoughts may fragment. Images may appear briefly. And fade again. Nothing needs to be followed. Nothing needs to be remembered. The mind is allowed to wander. Without needing direction. Even moments of still awareness carry value here. They signal safety. They tell the brain that vigilance can loosen. And when vigilance loosens, the deeper systems know how to take over. Rest does not demand silence. It only asks for permission to continue. And that permission is already being given, moment by moment. With each quiet breath. There is no finish line. Only a gentle settling. Like water becoming calm. After movement has passed. Whatever comes next can arrive slowly. As this state lingers, it does not disappear when attention shifts. Rest leaves traces behind. The brain remembers what calm feels like. The nervous system stores the pattern of ease. Later, even without noticing, the body may return to this balance more easily than before. Moments of rest build familiarity. Each time the mind pauses without sleeping, it practices letting go without fear. This is why brief, quiet rests can change the texture of an entire day, or soften the edge of a long night. Nothing dramatic is required for this effect to remain. No perfect stillness. No complete silence. Just the experience of not needing to be anywhere else. In these moments, the brain learns something subtle, but important. That safety does not always require alertness. That awareness can exist without effort. And over time, this understanding spreads into sleep, into waking, into the spaces between tasks and thoughts. Rest without sleep is not a substitute. It is a companion. A quiet place. The mind knows how to find when it is allowed to. And even as this awareness fades, something gentle remains. A softened rhythm. A quieter background. A sense that nothing urgent needs to happen right now. The system continues on its own, steady and unforced, carrying this calm forward, without needing attention. And wherever the mind drifts next, this quiet balance can drift with it. Eventually, this gentle state blends back into whatever comes next. Thoughts may return slowly, without pressure. The world does not rush back in. It arrives softly. The brain carries forward what it has just practiced. A lighter grip on effort. A quieter response to noise. A steadier inner pace. Even small moments of rest can change how the mind meets the next hour, or the next conversation, or the next task. There is often a subtle clarity afterward. Not sharp. Not demanding. Just present. The body feels slightly more spacious. The breath moves with less resistance. Nothing needs to be remembered from this. Nothing needs to be held. The effect remains. Without instruction. Rest without sleep does not interrupt life. It weaves into it. And as attention naturally shifts again, the nervous system already knows how to soften. That knowledge does not fade. It waits quietly, available whenever the pace slows again. For now, there is no need to decide where the mind should go next. It can move gently, or stay still. Either way, the calm continues in its own way, steady and unspoken, carrying forward, without effort. Thank you for spending this quiet moment here. If this gentle exploration brought you ease or understanding, you're always welcome to return. Until then, rest lightly, and let the calm move with you.